Okay, cool. So I am Laura Flecha. This is my first compiled that has been compiled over 20 years. And I'm not that slow of a writer. I actually write very fast when I do write. But it took a long time to kind of gather the story I wanted to tell. And yeah, I've had a lot of obstacles, I would say, in my life. You know, cancer with me, with my family members, and a lot of divorce, and just a lot of things that have kind of set me back and made, for some interesting things to write about. Many muses in my life, for sure. And this book definitely hits on all aspects of that. So I've been writing this book for a long time, and I really didn't think that I was going to publish a book. I started off just sending out a poem here and there, trying to just get, one or two poems published. And then I was like, I've got too many poems. Let me just and a lot by the concept of ready room, the term ready room. And you will, if you read the book, or if you've read it, it's almost like I've been in a ready room for 20 years. And I'm just now about to start my race. And my race is so my own. So no competition, besides, the inner workings of my mind.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And when we first just talked about this book via email, so many details about what is involved in each of these poems really reached out to me personally. And I wanted you to sort of talk to me a little bit about what are some of the core elements in these poems. Because I know they're very varied, it's very personal, and they tell a lot of parts of your life.
Yes. So there's a lot of core elements. I will start off by saying a lot of patterns in my life that I've seen over the years. And when I looked at these poems, many patterns, and a lot of themes that run deep. I definitely write a lot about women's issues. It's really dear to me, and I will continue to write about women's issues because I think it's very important, and I think it's it's relatable not only for women, for all genders, and we experience kind of a collective human suffering. And I think that I try to reach and talk about things that normally are hard to talk about, and I really want to help people through my writing. So that's kind of the core. I was thinking if there's like an overarching theme, I was thinking it would be psychoexistence. I was brought up Tibetan Buddhist, from birth. My mom and my family members, my aunts are Buddhist nuns, so it's had a huge impact on me. And what psychoexistence means is basically the unstable and transient existence that we're all in. So it's something very relatable for everyone. And I just want to be able to offer almost a helping hand to those in need, because I've needed many helping hands over the years. And, my family and friends have saved me many times over the years. And I think the book shows the flow of impermanence. So you may find yourself in a situation that's very difficult, but I always try to find the center. I refer to the term calm abiding, and it's this center in all of us where you can kind of find peace, and ride that wave and still, yes, you're going through difficult times, but if you can get in tune with that center, you can get through a lot. Yeah.
Absolutely. And something, I didn't get to read all of the poems in the book, but something that really did jump out at me is, I'm not a Buddhist, but I do know a lot of people who are, and you can definitely feel that through, kind of threaded through a lot of the work, as well as how your Buddhism touches every part of your life and your work.
Right.
And would you like to say a little bit more about that?
Sure. I think the most important thing that Buddhism has taught me is compassion. And I try to live through the eyes of compassion. And, you know, when you speak of Buddhism, there's wisdom and compassion. I can't claim to have any wisdom, but I do try to at least have some compassion. And that's a theme that, you know, I hope is evident in the book, that compassion for ourselves and for others. And I think that's very important, dealing with, you know, these human emotions that the book deals with, and just being able to reach others. And that's a beautiful thing about poetry, is we can reach each other in ways that we might not be able to just have a simple conversation. But when you read a poem, it can bring you to, it can bring an understanding of someone else, and an empathy, and even a relatable aspects of someone else. So I think that I hope that shows through in the book.
I think it absolutely does.
Thank you.
And something that that this makes me think about too is the idea of, can you really truly know another person fully, or are they simply like a reflection of your own self? And so if you do make a practice of compassion towards those other people who may or may not be reflections of yourself, then you're really showing also compassion to yourself, and offering kindness both outward and inward.
I completely agree. That is an awesome statement. And I think that sums up a lot of what I try to write about. It's just an overarching, we're in this together. We're all the same, you know, we're all suffering. We're all going through hardships that are very similar. Might not be the exact same, but we can all relate, and it brings us together as we, you know, and that's one of the most amazing things about poetry.
Absolutely. I completely agree with that as well. And I am a little bit late to the poetry appreciation game, for sure. But
well, I write poetry mainly because I am too impatient to write a full book. So I'm trying to write a novel right now. And it's difficult. It's a novel I'm very invested in, and I think it will be something if I can commit to it. So it's almost like I have commitment issues, you know?
It's funny that you say that, because I got into reading poetry more recently because I do not have the mental capacity to read novels right now.
Exactly.
Don't tell my boss. No, I read 100 books a day.
Right. I completely agree. Yes, it's and it can be so impactful. One poem, I was thinking, you know, you can read it one day, and then you can read the same poem the next day or a year later, and it can affect you a completely different way. And it's so powerful. And I think of poetry almost like a puzzle, you know, put together. And usually the ending is just like complete. And you don't need, you know, many words to make a powerful impact. And that's one of my favorite things about poetry.
I absolutely feel that the economy of words and like the impact you can create with so few words, and how that impact can shift over time, it can be an incredible experience. And can you tell me a little bit about, as you were writing, as you were writing Ready Room, it's a tongue twister for you.
It is.
Were there any of your own works that, in the course of making a book, it takes a really long time. For those of you who don't know, it takes a long time to make a book. Were there some that, had been written earlier on, and then in the process you came back to them and they felt completely different? Or
Yeah. So yeah, my writing style is, I was gonna touch on this for sure. My writing style in that way, I think, is different and unique, because I let the poem, I'm affected by an emotion. And then I immediately, as I'm feeling an emotion, my response to that is, well, what's going on outside of myself? So I look outside of myself, and then I'll see metaphors start to build. Always, there's always metaphors, everywhere we look. And so I take that and I let it sit for a while. And as it builds, I kind of write the poem in my head before I even write it down. And when I finally feel like I can't take it anymore or remember the words enough, I'll grab a pen and paper and just write as fast as I can and get it out. And there's just a sense of release, and then I let it go. And that poem kind of takes on its own life, and so there is a sort of process that I've become accustomed to in writing these poems, and it works for me. I don't do much editing at all. There might be some grammatical errors that I'll correct along the way, but basically I feel like I even have trouble claiming the poems as my own, because I feel like I'm just, I'm a channel for the poems is what I feel like. So someone will be like, oh, this poem's really great. And I'm like, well, it wrote itself, so, but yeah, I enjoy that.
It kind of sounds like what you're describing is when you said the thing about the puzzle earlier, as if the puzzle, it's assembled itself inside of you.
Yes.
And then your job is just to show everyone else, look at that puzzle that happened.
Yeah, and there's a lot that I don't even notice when I write, because I write so fast and furiously. I was thinking, if anyone were to see my handwriting, they would think that I was a crazy person. But I'm like, we're just gonna call it passion, but yeah, I used to wake up at all hours of the night or be driving, and I'd have a notebook, and I would be holding, back when this was like years ago, back before it was really important that you pay attention when you're driving, which it always has been. I would be writing on the seat as I'm driving, and I had to keep getting it out, or I'd go to the bathroom late at night with my notebook and just sit there and write stream of consciousness poetry. And that's kind of my thing. It wasn't until I went to Johns Hopkins, and my professor is here tonight. And I do want to acknowledge Professor Perlman from Johns Hopkins. And the book is in part dedicated to him. And I did not, my first night showing up at Johns Hopkins, I got lost on the way there. I got lost on campus, couldn't find the classroom. So I was late and drenched from the rain. And I go in, and the class is counting metrical feet in poetry. And I did not know what that is. I hadn't. And I already gone through a lot of writing classes, and I was like, I am lost, number one, in many ways. And number two, I don't think I'm a poet. And I felt like I knew nothing. And I almost just quit right then. But I stuck with it, and I learned, what a dactyl is, what an anapest is, all of the things, And so it changed my way of writing. It refined it, I think, in a way. Before I entered the program at Johns Hopkins, I was encouraged to go to the program from a past professor at during my bachelor years, and he said, you have to go to Johns Hopkins program, but he said, do not conform and do not change your voice. And so that was his warning, and so I took that to heart, and I think I was able to keep the voice but refine the poetry and learn how to write in form and free verse. So once you know the rules, you can break them, is what they say. So it was a process for me, for sure.
Wow, that's really fascinating, because a lot of folks who, not to cast any dispersions on poets in general, but a lot of people that I have met who are poets tend to have the opposite journey, where they come in thinking they know all, and then have to get humbled by by school and experience.
Oh yeah, no, it was I was definitely humbled. Yeah.
And can you tell me then about other life experiences of yours that have shaped the way that you write?
Sure. That's a long story. How much time do you got? No, I'm kidding. So I've had a pretty complicated life. I've had a lot of obstacles. And I don't say that lightly, and I don't say it because I'm proud of it. It just kind of has happened. So I would say the first aspect that I started to notice was mental illness and being diagnosed with mental illness and having it run in my family. So being around mental illness. And then I married my high school sweetheart. He goes to about page 108. So it definitely says a lot, how painful and hard that experience was. But so I married my high school sweetheart, got pregnant at 18. My firstborn is right here, Asia. And so that in itself was a difficult thing, to have a baby so young, but it worked out exactly as it should have. And then we got married, had Della, my second daughter. And then, there was some abuse that I went through in this marriage. So it's in the book, but I hope that the love is in the book too, because it was 95% good. That's what I always say. And you've got that 5% that's not good. And so there is a lot of heartache in the poems, but there's a lot of love there. And we're good. I love him, still. He's the father of my children. We're very close to this day. But we did go through a lot at a young age. My daughter Asia was diagnosed with cancer when she was 2, and then it reoccurred when she was 3, on her lungs. And so we went to St. Jude Children's Research Hospital, and they, along with a lot of prayers, saved her life. And she still has, her lungs function at 50%. There's a lot of to deal with as a now adult, almost, almost 21 adult. And so that was very hard. And I think that it put a lot of pressure on that young marriage, being so young and having to go through so much together. And then, I did end up making the decision to get divorced, and move on from that. So there's a lot about healing from a divorce in the book. Falling in love again. I'm remarried. My husband's here. And then I got cancer, after several years of, I was sick for quite a long time before they found it. And so there's, that's definitely in the book too. And then there's issues of miscarriages, IVF trouble that we went through in my second marriage. And even the pandemic is in the end of the book, because I think it's very like that and we're in it. I wrote that poem specifically. It's called 2020, and I wish that it was just 2020, but unfortunately, we're still here wearing masks, doing everything to be safe. So yeah.
It really sounds to me, and a lot of the poems that I did get to read from your book seem to reflect like a semi-autobiographical flavor,
Yes.
so to speak. And earlier when you were mentioning that the book is a lot about women's issues as well, something that I noticed is that it isn't the sort of vague umbrella women's issues. It is like women who are human beings and have these incredibly specific and deep issues and live these robust lives that often don't get explored with an honest lens.
Right.
And I think that Ready Room does that in a way that is just very touching and spectacular. So I would like to now ask you to read a few selections for our audience.
Sure. Thank you. All right. So let me see if I can find the pages. So I've got a few. This first one is called A Whale in Love Part. I'm sure my husband loves this one. No, just kidding. When yesterday I stood inside Love Park, I wish that you would feel the same as me. Beneath the fountain's misty roar, we'd embark to splash each other's clothes until we're free and indulge in all the city's charm entails. Instead, our love is like the underground, the grime that pulls in all directions, wails and moans a lonely 52 hertz sound. When we wake, still in Jean's Cafe on Walnut Street, all I hear is the flip of griddle cakes and the scrape of salty home fries over heat that I realize I'm in love with love. I'm in love with all I've found Love Fountain barren of. Thank you. Thank you so much. This next one. This one makes me cry, but I'll try not to. All right. So this I'm sure you'll pick up. I wrote this when my daughter was going through treatment at St. Jude in Memphis. It's called Losing What Were Precious Jewels. I lost my wedding ring on a sweltering day in Memphis. On a day I searched through parched grass on the banks of the Mississippi. It was an off day from chemo, and we went to hear music in the streets of downtown. My daughter said she missed her Montessori school as she watched the other kids with her longing eyes. She didn't understand why she couldn't go, and her understanding of her loss of hair was the simple one we had given her. I lost my wedding ring in between the pool and tanning oil on my hands and sitting on a swing in front of Miss Cordelia's market, sipping not quite cold beer from brown tinted bottles. The kids balanced across the curb, imagining a tightrope they'd seen at the circus the night before, when a clown took time to peek up at my daughter from behind a wall. His cherry-colored bulb nose touching her delicate face, a face that had lost its smile until that moment. I lost my wedding ring in Memphis heat, under a blues band drawing a crowd, our strained family, us, standing in a battlefield. The only weapons, the tools in our minds. I lost it between hidden tensions of a husband and wife, With all the odds against us, we tried. We tried to stand in the wind, in the storm, in the heat, in the war.
You're gonna cry though.
Okay, I'm sorry. I make everybody cry. I just joke I'm like the Rain King, you know that song. All right. Shedding the unnecessary. Taking him out of my life is like taking wallpaper off an age-old plaster. It comes off in pieces, like a child picking at a scab on their knee. I'm anxious for him to be gone. All right, so this is a little more upbeat, maybe. At least falling in love again. It's called Make of Me Disquiet. He first touched me in the dark room when the negatives were just being exposed to the photo paper. Then he left his mark on my inner thighs so that all I could think was how tender this life is. When I exited the room and looked at the barren treetops, I saw static, but the electricity was in me, once again like bleeding purple ink, staining and forming pools of delicate bruises. The front yard lay soggy with patches of snow that sat like icebergs in deep blue water. The outside radiated the color of an eggplant skin. Sky searched out restlessly, provoked, and the snow began to fall, cooling the hot places on my body. The snowflakes melted into my cream skin, filling me with the scent of Earl Grey tea and wet earth. And then the way beer warms came flush with the qualm slowly fading, leaving nothing gentle in its wake. And then the last one I was going to read is about the pandemic. And I have to say, the pandemic has been unbelievably terrible, but it's done something for our family that has brought us very close together. And there's a lot that I think that we have experienced that we wouldn't have been able to had we not been in lockdown. And because my daughter's lungs function at 50%, we're very, very careful. So it's pretty much just us, bunked up all the time together. So this is a reflection of that. It's called 2020. Might as well call it 2022. Finding calm in the storm, making sure loved ones are okay, making sure I'm okay so I can take care of loved ones. Restless, board games, cooking meals we've never cooked before, all sitting at one table, calm. Birds feeding and chirping, nap, skipping a nap, going on a run and noticing new sprouts, new blooms, rest, stare off, fight anxiety, calm anxiety with conversation, conversations being held that never would have happened, family, peace, a love like I've never felt, news, lots of news, fighting it with care, looking forward, knowing this is temporary, getting to know my kids in new ways, isolation, but isolation with the ones I love, learning to be strong and calm and find the center of the storm so that all can benefit. Ripples, we're all so more connected than I could ever previously conceive. Love, cook for one another, wash hands on repeat, try not to worry. About everything being sold out. Inhale and exhale. We are all one. Fold laundry, lay down, close my eyes that hurt, rest, repeat. Pick my little one up and give kisses and tickles. Play, laugh, love fully, offer comfort. Watch my loved ones grow with them, become in sync with growth, with think about others often, pray, deep, deeper than the well outside, deeper than I'm used to. Pray like we are all one, because we are. Thank you.
Thank you. These poems are just so rich and detailed and very beautiful. And I would like to hear a little bit about sort of the timeline of creating this book. For example, when was the first poem in this book written?
Interesting. Right. That is fascinating. So this is not every poem I ever written. I believe I was about 16 or 17 when I wrote it. So it really goes back. And it jumps, basically every poem in here is I guess nonfiction autobiography, like you're saying. And except for, I think there's a short story. There's a couple short stories mixed in, but if you read those short stories, they are really talking about what I'm going through personally, but in a fiction way. So I think that, that's kind of, I wanted the book to tell the whole story. And so it spans back pretty far. Yeah.
That's amazing. I wish I had anything from when I was 16, except for, trauma. But
I got that too. We're good.
But this is a pretty remarkable collection, and I'm wondering,
Thank you.
over the years of writing these poems, whether they made it into the book or not, what are some of the reactions that you've had in other opportunities that you've had to share your work? What are some reactions that you've had that have kind of stood out to you over the years?
Right. So I think probably the biggest reaction I've had to my work was from a professor who the book is in part dedicated to, who unfortunately passed away just before I could give him a copy of the book. But I started taking his class right out of high school, and I took it every semester. And he gave me probably the best compliment I've ever had. And he said, you're one of my most favorite writers I've ever read. And it was quite, it stuck with me. But he was one of the most amazing teachers I've ever had. And he taught me so much, and he really pulled my writing voice out from inside of me and helped me find that. And I don't think I would have found that had I not, had him as a teacher. But there's a lot. There's a lot to it. Yeah.
Let me take does anyone have the time?
808.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Good timing. In that case, I would like to open it up to our audience here and also our viewers at home. If you're watching and you'd like to ask a question, you can leave a comment on the video that you're watching right now. But do we have any questions from the audience?
When's your next book?
Thanks. A friend from high school who helped me compile these poems. So we sat for many, many hours with poems printed out all over the basement floor, trying to figure out what we were doing to gather this book. So my next book, I am working on a novel that, and it's a stretch for me to do, but I am trying. My writing style is very poetic. So even when I write a short story or a longer piece, it is very poetic, in maybe too poetic. I don't know. I guess I'll have to get an agent and an editor to tell me what to do, but cut it. So I'm also continuing to write poetry, and I do want to continue that as well, and publish another poetry book for sure.
You mentioned you were 16 about when you wrote your first poem.
Mm.
Did you ever have any inkling or ideas as a child that you were going to be a poet, or did you have, when did it first come to you that you wanted to express the feelings and words?
Right. So in second grade, there's an activity that I think all second graders do. They write a short book, and at least in public school, I don't know, that's where I went. And they basically turn the short story into a hardback book. I do not have that book anymore, long lost. I do remember that it was about a goldfish, and I still have goldfish to this day. And I think in second grade, I started to realize that I really liked writing. I don't think I, at least not yet in my life, have the capacity to teach as a writer. But so I went a different route than that. So I write on my own, and then for work, I'm a publications manager for a medical journal. So I do a lot of editing, and so that kind of stuck. But I think it was about second grade when I realized. And then when I took my first creative writing course, it was in Sedona. We moved to Sedona, Arizona when I was 16. And if you know anything about Sedona, Arizona, it's beautiful, inspiring, free-spirited. So I took this writing class in high school, and which I thought was just so cool that they offered a creative writing class in high school out there. And we would hike mountains at night and write poetry with our friends, and it was just a very fulfilling it's amazing. Yes.
I grew up around here, so we had
Right.
not that.
Right. Right. It's hard to find anywhere to go out here. That's why we moved to a little farm. So we're out in the country now. So, but yeah, the night hikes were the best under the moonlight. I mean, the moon is so bright and the stars are so bright out there. You don't even need a flashlight. It's just gorgeous and really inspiring.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm going to check really quick if we have any questions from our live stream, but if you have any questions from our present audience, please feel free. Oh, well, I have one from the audience. A few comments that said beautiful with a heart emoji, and then all with a sad face emoji, and someone said I'm crying. Someone else asked, Sean asks, how does it feel knowing your words can empower others and help them know they're not alone? Beautiful, Sean. Thank you.
Absolutely amazing. And I will go back to same thing I was saying, where I have trouble taking credit for my writing. And so in Buddhism, we have this term that you offer it up instead of clinging to it and it becoming kind of oh, that's awesome. Like I did that. It's you offer it up and you offer it to others. And so I just want to continue to offer it up. And but it is quite amazing when I hear someone has my poetry has moved them to tears. It touches me deeply, and it means a lot.
I can relate to that. I'm a musician and a performer.
Awesome.
And I've had people tell me like, your song made me so scared, or like made me cry. Right, along with a lot of songs about like climate stuff.
Cool.
And that just like feels good. And I always tell them, cry. It's good for you.
Exactly.
It's scientifically good for you to cry.
Exactly. I remember one time I told I wanted to learn how to play guitar, and sing. And like my dad is a very good guitarist. He's a good singer, but he doesn't think so. So he doesn't sing very often. But I said, I want to learn guitar and sing because I want to make people cry. And he looked at me like I was crazy. And I'm like, no, I want to make them feel something, you know, like, and so yeah, I get that.
It's an accomplishment. It's a goal. So if we're ready, I think we have one more special presentation at the end of our event here, if you're still willing.
You don't want to? Del, you can continue. She's a little nervous. So
That's
maybe
fine.
we'll see. Maybe in a few minutes.
Well,
No, she doesn't want to. Okay, that's okay.
no
Yeah.
pressure.
No pressure.
We're just here chilling out, Max. In that case, can you let us and our viewers at home know how we can keep up with you, where we can find out about that next book when it's coming out?
Yeah. So I have a website, lauraflecha.com. I'm also on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn. And my contact info is on the website. And I try to keep it as updated as I can. And you know, I think, looking at the publishing world is very complicated to me. You know, I went a certain route to publish this book, and I'm hoping to go maybe a different route next time, but we'll see. The publisher has been for a suggestion for the cover. And I did this really crappy photoshopped cover of this girl sitting by a pool. Mine was a girl, but I wanted a woman sitting by the pool, and the pool kind of then stretching outward beyond so that you would just keep going. And so they took that, and you know, it wasn't guaranteed that they're going to use my idea, but they did, and I'm very thankful for that. It's just looking at it is it's surreal. It's very surreal.
That's amazing, and I can also attest to the complexities of the publishing world.
Yes.
Love you, publishing world.
Yeah.
In that case, I think you also prepared some nice things for our audience here.
Yes, there are gift bags and there's wine. I believe in the back. Should we bring it up?
Yeah, I'll go grab
Okay,
them.
awesome. Thank you.
And as a last note, thank you so much
Thank
for everything.
you.
This has been a wonderful conversation, and your readings were very beautiful.
Thank
The
you so
book
much.
is gorgeous, and I would like to offer you a round of applause here. Thank you all for coming. You should give yourself a pat on the back and a round of applause.
Yeah, thank you so much, everyone. I just want to say, Lost City Books, you have an amazing place here for our community, and you offer so much. I am now hooked in coming here all the time. And it's just it's amazing. And thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. I also want to note that if you purchased your book on Eventbrite, just come and see me before you take it home so I can mark that off. Other than that, feel free to come and grab a copy of Ready Room. And do you have a pen? Would you like to sign?
I do have
books?
a pen.
Laura might be so kind as to sign your book for you.
Thank you.
Can you sign my book at home?
Of course.
Mom, you still need to give me a book at home.
Yes, there's one at home for you.
Let's go.
So you do buy books on the website. I assume you can buy these.
Hayden. You want to come say? I got my buddy.
Grown-up treats for grown-ups.
Somebody bottles for nothing.
Sure.
All right, awesome. Yes,
Yes.
yes.
Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry, I apologize. You know, let Hayden sign a couple.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.